Welcome back to another edition of One-on-One Sports. Today we're going to be talking about some
MLB,
NASCAR,
and college football.
And it all starts
right now. Let's get things started with the quick hitters. I'm Chase Strasser, joined alongside by Bryson Burns. And Bryson, we actually have some Elon news to kick us off.
I know, we usually don't talk about Elon sports a lot here on the show, but we felt like this was a big enough occasion that it warranted it. Elon football is now ranked number 25 in the Stats Perform poll, which is very, very impressive. It's the first time they've been ranked all season in either poll. They are recently coming off of a win over number 4, William & Mary, beat them 14-6. Matthew Downing really got that passing game going in the fourth quarter. Their defense looked really strong against William & Mary's offense, which was arguably the best rushing offense in the entire FCS. It was just a very solid win, Chase.
And like you said, a top 5 win for Elon. They get another ranked opponent coming up this weekend.
No, yeah, that's going to be huge against NC Central. Going to be a very pivotal game. It could determine whether they can drop 1 game in CAA play or 2 games in CAA play and still likely get into the FCS playoffs, because going 7-4 overall and 6-2 in CAA play, that should get you into the FCS playoffs, at least for the most part. There's still a little bit of wiggle room to where they could be bounced out, but if you're at that pace, then you're going to 99% chance be in. And so that NC Central game is going to be really big. They haven't won a non-conference game so far this year. Regardless of what happens this weekend, they'll still be at the top of the CAA, though. And so Elon football, a little bit faulty there for a second when they lost to Wake and Gardner-Webb, but they've looked really strong over these past couple of games with Matthew Downing and Jalen Hampton, and that entire defense as well. They've looked really rock solid.
Like you said, held that William & Mary team to only 6 points. They get another tough opponent this weekend. We'll see how they do. Moving into the world of baseball, we're now getting into the playoffs. Every wild card matchup was a sweep, but a couple good headlines coming out of the first round.
Absolutely, and I kind of want to take a little bit more time to just look at some of the players that are overall we're going to say goodbye to most likely this season. So first we have Miguel Cabrera, 511 career home runs, over 1,800 career RBIs. He played in his last game on October the 1st. Definitely a very tough goodbye for the MLB world to say there. Also, Adam Wainwright for the St. Louis Cardinals, a very good pitcher there. He had 200 career wins. He got his 200th right before he said goodbye 2 weeks ago. He's been with the Cardinals since 2005, so 2 very big names that are going to be leaving the MLB after this season. And then also Buck Showalter, the manager for the Mets. We didn't know what was really going to happen for him. He was fired on the last day of the Mets season after they underperformed, but it looks like he's thinking of going to the Angels potentially. That's kind of the rumor mill going around in the MLB right now, that he wants that interview and he wants that manager job. So the 4-time manager of the year, potentially looking to still stay in the MLB as well. That's one we thought that maybe that would be the end of his career there, but looks like he's still going to go for that 2024 season, it looks like, Chase.
So a couple storylines still left to be played out. Still a lot of baseball left to be played. We got a couple more rounds of the playoffs. Moving into the world of golf, Bryson, the USA team at the Ryder Cup just got absolutely demolished.
Yeah, it was definitely a very impressive win by Team Europe over there. I mean, the USA got swept basically the opening day. It took them a while to really gather their bearings in any sense of the manner. Max Homa had 3.5 points for the USA, the only USA player to have over 2 points, whereas there were 6 European players that had over 2 points. I mean, any way you look at it, Team Europe dominated. USA was a bit more even kill a little bit in the last couple of rounds, last couple of matches, but Team Europe got out to a really large lead, and they kept that lead throughout the entire tournament. And so very big win by Team Europe. I also thought it was interesting when I was looking at the notes, the venue that hosted the Ryder Cup actually recently caught on fire a couple of days after the fact. Thankfully, no one was reported to be injured, but just a very weird scenario right there as well.
Now talking about the NFL, and one of the talks of the town has been the Chicago Bears team, which has had just an up-and-down roller coaster of a season, which involved their defensive coordinator maybe being investigated by the FBI, then just leaving the team, and also possibly our first Tank Bowl of the year. Shout out good old friend of the show, Your Name Tree.
Yeah, as you said, the Tank Bowl between the Bears and the Broncos, both teams came into the game 0-3. They had lost their previous games by a combined 81 points, which included a 70-20 loss for the Broncos at the hands of the Dolphins. That was probably the most points given up, at least in the modern era, by an NFL team. You'd have to go a couple of decades back to even see a team give up 70 points in one game. But going to the game itself, the Broncos would ultimately win 31-28. However, the Bears had a 28-7 lead late in the third quarter. ESPN had them at a 98.1% chance of winning when they went up 28-7. But they ended up choking the game away in a very Tank Bowl-like fashion, if I had to say. The good news for the Bears is they were able to turn around that Thursday night and beat the Washington Commanders 40-20. But regardless, that was still definitely a tough loss for the Bears, but a really nice bounce back as well for the Broncos, who could have kind of thrown in the towel after that 50-point slamming against the Dolphins, but they did a nice job of at least getting that first win under the belt. You know, Broncos Nation, they may not be riding super well, but at least they have something to cheer about on that team right now.
Russell Wilson is looking a little bit better, and the quarterback for the Bears, Justin Fields, kind of been the question all season. You're looking for him to make that next jump. He's looked better, but still making a few mistakes. That's ultimately why I think they lost to the Broncos.
No, yeah, I completely agree. It was just a lot of mistakes late by the Bears in that fourth quarter where they had that turnover that was returned for a touchdown. I mean, just definitely a tough break for the Bears. They looked good through the first three quarters, but it's a four-quarter game for a reason. You have to play all 60 minutes, and the Bears just couldn't do that when they played the Broncos. And so they just very kind of Bears way to lose the game, at least looking at the Bears this season, I hate to say it.
Well, I'm sure a lot of fans probably won't be, but some will be forced to watch the Bears the rest of the way. Well, thank you, Bryson. Always good talking to you with the quick hitters. Up next, moving into the world of NASCAR.
Welcome back to 101 Sports, everyone. We're going to go ahead and head to the track with Jack Gill and Aiden Blake. But before we do that, let's go ahead and look at the review at Talladega. Aiden, what were your thoughts on this past weekend's race?
Yeah, Bryson, Talladega, always good playoff race. Huge track, one of the super speedways that we know and love. It was overall really good race. Harvick had some really good runs. He would have been second, but happened to be a disqualification because of a windshield. Don't know what really happened there. Could have been NASCAR just being NASCAR, but we really don't know. Overall, he had some great pace. I really like to see him out there. It's his last season. We'll really kind of see what's going to happen with him down the road. Maybe he goes to a different motorsport, but right now, seeing him with so much speed was really fun to see. Some of his runs coming off of turn 4 into the tri-oval were really, really something special. And then the other, final 30 laps was just pure chaos. They were going 3 wide, 4 wide into the tri-oval, 4 wide into turn 3. Some phenomenal runs, some phenomenal side drafts. And, like I said, Harvick had the speed, but I heard an interview, he was talking with his spotter. He was like, should I side draft coming into the final turn? He didn't end up doing that. He lost. He wouldn't have won anyways, given the windshield, but overall, really good race. And then back to stage 1, the Ryan Blaney win for stage 1. Definitely got some good points there, but I honestly don't think he could have held that without the Ross Chastain crashing out in the turn 3-4 banking. So definitely think that helped out, but overall, really good race rolling into the Roval this weekend.
Jack, what were your thoughts?
Well, yeah, we had Ryan Blaney winning stage 1, winning the race for sure. Brad Keselowski stage 2, that's huge for him. He ended up crashing out, wrecking Carson Hocevar. Austin Dillon made some interesting comments about that situation, saying that the 42 should not be running in the race. He's not skilled enough, couldn't hold a straight line to save his life. A lot of mean comments from a driver who is struggling with a very successful team. Yeah. Brad Keselowski ended up wrecking in that crash as well, along with Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar, Harrison Burton, and others. I think this whole race, Ryan Blaney with the win for sure, locks him in for the next round. Not too strong at the Roval. I think this is huge for him going into the round of 8. But other than that, I thought this was a very interesting race. Until the last 30 laps, a lot of very interesting racing and a lot of side drafting and yeah, a very competitive, entertaining race.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go ahead and keep it with you. We have some predictions to make here, gentlemen.
Yep.
We're looking at the Roval this upcoming weekend, the last round of 12 race. Definitely do or die time for a lot of drivers. Who do you have as the ultimate winner?
Well, there's a lot of guys here that could win this race. You look at the 20 who won the race last year. You look at the 45 who's been really strong. But my pick is the 9 car of Chase Elliott. This guy has won 2 out of the 5 starts he's made on the Roval, and he's been top 5 in the two of the past 3 road courses ran in the NASCAR Cup Series. My pick's Chase Elliott. I know he hasn't been strong this year. I think this is his race.
No. Though he's been strong, he's pretty good at the Roval. I just don't think he has the overall pace to go for it. I'm going to jump back on that Harvick train. I think he can do some damage. Given that it is a Roval and turn 3 and 4 of the Motor Speedway are still in there, I think he can really generate some speed off that back straight into turn 3 and 4 right before the chicane. Maybe a little dive bomb in, short track style. Love to see a couple of those, but I think he has a good opportunity to get some solid stage points. Don't know if he can get the win, but for the win, I gotta go with Denny. Road course genius. He got really good at the Glen. I think overall he's got the skill, the speed, the pace, the car to make it happen this weekend and secure some solid points for down the road to set him up pretty good for the round 8, round 4. But overall, I think it's going to be a pretty good race. I think it's just going to be crash heavy. People are going to get desperate into the chicane, into the turns, and just try to do a little bump and run. But I don't think that bump and run is going to happen on a road course.
I have to ask, what do you mean by Chase Elliott doesn't have the pace necessarily?
I'm personally not a Chase Elliott fan, but I just don't think he can sustain with some of these faster guys behind him. I don't think he can sustain and keep them behind him. Honestly, his blocking, it's good but not great. So I think that's definitely going to hurt him down the road. Is the blocking into the turns, which really you got to kind of defend your inside, outside, and middles on a road course, and I just don't think he's going to be able to do that with some pace behind him.
Fair enough. Jack?
If I may add, the 45 car of Tyler Reddick, when asked about this weekend's Roval race, he was not worried. He was calm, although he is -2 at the cut line as of right now. He was not worried, saying to Danielle Trotta that he is completely chill-free, very relaxed and ready to go to this race.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to the last point right now. We went to the Roval, gentlemen, but we got to look big picture. Who do you have as the ultimate Cup Series champion?
I gotta go with Denny Hamlin, honestly. I think JGR Toyotas this season have been insanely fast. As a team, Joe Gibbs Racing, 6 wins as a team. It really shows the overall pace of their the Toyota Supras that they got. Denny has 3 wins, 13 top 5s, and 16 top 10s this season. So I think he's really got some good pace. If he gets the win this weekend, he'll be secured in for advancement, and I think he's overall just going to have a really good run into the finals. And the big thing for him is he's just got to stay out of the crashing because Denny usually loses when he gets wrapped up with stupid battles in the backfield. So I think if Denny stays clean, he can definitely take it all.
So you're picking Hamlin. Who are you picking, Jack?
Man, I'm going with the 24, William Byron. This guy's got 6 wins on the season. 4 of those wins come in overtime restarts. Wins at Atlanta, getting the rain shortened race, but beating out Harvick at Phoenix this past spring. I think Byron, you can't bet against him. Kyle Petty said it best. Byron is the bus driver at Hendrick, and I think he drives that bus to a 17th championship for Hendrick Motorsports.
Very good there. So that's going to go ahead and do it for our NASCAR block. We're going to go from the oval, I guess I should say the Roval, to the gridiron. We're going to talk about some college football coming up next. Welcome back to 101 Sports. We're going to talk some college football now with Nick Chirichillo and Ethan Potash. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here, as always. So first, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Who do you have as the Heisman winner?
I mean, it has to be Caleb Williams, right? He's by far the best player in the country. You watch this guy play. He's electric. He's currently 6th in yards. He's 1st in touchdowns. He's 1st in rating. He's 1st in yards per attempt. He has a touchdown to interception ratio of 21-1. That's ridiculous. He's easily the best player in the country. I think if he stays healthy, which is of course always the caveat, I think he has to be a lock for the Heisman.
Who do you have?
I have Michael Penix, and I think he's also a player who's just as electric as Caleb Williams. He might not have the touchdown numbers, but he's the closest one in the country. He leads the country in yards, and that whole Washington offense is just a machine. And I do think that Michael Penix can pass Caleb Williams for the Heisman, and I think he's going to be able to do that with beating the ranked opponents later. Like, he still has to play Oregon. USC and Washington play each other, and I think even if Penix can't catch up to Williams' touchdown numbers, if Penix can win key games, and USC has lost key games seasons before, like last year and the year before that, I think Penix can pass him.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you that Washington's offense is electric, but I think you watch Caleb Williams play, you say there's no way this guy's not the best player in the country. And like you said, USC and Washington do have to play each other, so maybe the winner of that game ends up winning the Heisman, we could see. But I think that'll be a very interesting race to watch down the stretch, but I think Caleb Williams has to take it, especially all the hype around him. He's a projected #1 pick. I think even if we get to a point, which I don't think we will, but even if we get to the point where Penix has overtaken him, I still think the voters are going to give it to Caleb Williams just out of they favor him more.
I don't know, because voter fatigue could also come into effect, because there has not been a lot of back-to-back Heismans. So I think we could see a case where if their numbers are close enough, they'll give it to Penix instead of Caleb Williams through voter fatigue and just his production and being in that electric offense.
Well, I think one thing's for sure, y'all are both probably more correct than Caden Strickland was when he picked Jordan Travis to win the Heisman a couple of weeks ago now. But Nick, we're going to go ahead and keep it with you here. Who do you think is the best Pac-12 team? That's the conference that's really kind of had a standout year, ironically, where it's going to be the last year for them. Who's the best on the West Coast right now?
The best in the West? I was just hyping up Michael Penix and that explosive Washington offense, but I got to go with Oregon. You don't really see people talk about Oregon. Like, it's usually either Michael Penix or Caleb Williams, but Oregon has a very deep team. They have the defense to take them far in the Pac-12. They have the running backs, and they have a quarterback that can lead them places, and that quarterback is Bo Nix. And I think Bo Nix and that rushing attack are going to propel them to Pac-12 champions.
Now, Ethan, you were just kind of ragging on Washington a little bit, but it looks like they're your favorite right now, at least out of the best Pac-12 teams so far.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to say I was ragging on him. I mean, I was saying that Penix was the second best player in the country. But yes, Washington is my pick to win the Pac-12. I think they're the best Pac-12 team. I mean, their offense is must-see TV. It's electric. I make a point to stay up to watch the games, the 10:30 Pac-12 games, just to watch Washington's offense. Yeah, I think he's going to be the Heisman runner-up. Right now, Washington's offense is averaging the most yards and yards per, or they have the most total yards in the country. They're averaging most yards per game in the country, most passing yards per game in the country, and most passing yards in total, of course. They're fourth in total points and points per game, and their average margin of victory right now is 27.6. So they're killing teams.
I think Oregon, definitely they're going to win from being deep, and they do have the offense to do it. I think they're averaging like 51 points a game right now. And they haven't played the better teams yet, but when they do, they're going to be able to do it. They have 3 running backs that have currently over 100 yards, and they all have over 7 yards a carry, which I think depth is very important, especially as you get later into the season when people start getting injured. It's amazing to be able to just plug and play the next guy, next man up, and that's going to take them very far.
I mean, yeah, I just don't see any defense in the country, certainly in the Pac-12 at least, that's going to be able to keep up with the Washington offense. I mean, it is completely electric, and it's looked unstoppable. I mean, it's every drive they're scoring a touchdown. It's amazing to watch.
Well, we're going to go ahead and go big picture now, fellas. Very, very far away. We still have a lot of months until this comes about, but college football playoffs. Ethan, who are your 4 teams that are going to be in the CFP?
Yeah, so I think Georgia's going to make it. Now, I do want to press this is who we think will make it, not who we think the top 4 are. I think Georgia's going to make it. They have a pretty easy schedule. They're currently undefeated. They're probably going to remain undefeated. They've played 0 top 10 opponents. They don't play any top 10 opponents. They do have a bunch of ranked opponents left because they're in the SEC. They play Ole Miss. They play Kentucky. They play Mizzou. They play Tennessee. They play Florida, who isn't ranked now but was last week or 2 weeks ago. But they're probably going to go unbeaten. They're probably still going to win the SEC. That's going to get them in. The SEC champion's always going to get in. Michigan, I have because they're blowing everybody out. They don't have these unranked scares like Georgia has, where they beat Auburn by 7. They were down 11 to South Carolina in the second half. Their average margin of victory, Michigan's, is 28.4. They do have 2 tough games left, Penn State and Ohio State, but I think as long as they win one of them, they'll get in. I think a one-loss Big Ten champion, especially if it's Michigan, will get in. They've made it the last 2 years. They have the reputation. I'm going to take Texas as my third team. They have their signature win against Alabama. They don't have really any. They have one tough game left against Oklahoma, who's currently number 12. That's the only ranked opponent they have left. I think even if they lose to Oklahoma, if they win the Big 12, they could still get in. I wouldn't call it a lock, but I'd say they could still do it. I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, though. I think they're going to be an undefeated Big 12 champion. They're going to get in. My final team, I debated this for a long time. I'm going to go with Florida State. They only have 2 tough games left. That's against Duke and Miami, who are both ranked right now. They have their big win against LSU. And I think the other couple teams that I was considering, Penn State, I just don't see it. And the other teams, the trio of Pac-12 teams you were talking about earlier with Washington, Oregon, USC, I think they're all going to beat up, and Utah's in the Pac-12 too. They're all going to beat up on each other. They play the Pac-12 teams all play Washington State, Oregon State, all these good teams in the Pac-12. Colorado's still there, of course. They're just going to beat up on each other. I don't see a 2-loss Pac-12 champion getting in unless maybe if Florida State loses the game, potentially the 2-loss Pac-12 champion gets in. I still don't know. 2 losses is kind of a death sentence in college football. So Florida State's my number 4.
Okay, I agree with you with the Georgia and the Texas picks. I think both of them make it in. But I definitely think the Pac-12 champion gets in over Florida State. I just think with how hyped up the Pac-12 has been, they're going to get the edge over the ACC. And when they do all play each other, there is a world where USC has 1 loss. Like, I think 2 losses is a death sentence, but I think like USC could have 1 loss, Oregon could have 1 loss, and then they can definitely get in because all these teams are good enough. So if they can manage to only lose once or not at all, then the Pac-12 champion is definitely getting in. And I have to say, I'm taking Ohio State over Michigan because that Big Ten championship is going to come down to that one game. And Ohio State has improved a lot over last year. They don't have Stroud anymore. He's tearing it up in the NFL. But they got Colin McCord, he's shown that he can do enough to win them games. They won the Notre Dame game. And their defense is giving up 20 less rushing yards per game than last year. And if Blake Corum can't open that game wide with his good rushing ability, then I think Ohio State has what it takes to beat Michigan.
Ethan?
Yeah, so I totally see how a 1-loss Pac-12 champion gets in over a 1-loss Florida State. I just don't see the Pac-12 champion having 1 loss. But with the Ohio State, I mean, I'm going to focus on their quarterback for a second. Kyle McCord, he's not it. Like, I watched him against Notre Dame. He looked nervous. He looked unsure of himself. He was missing throws. I know it's his first year as a starter, but I don't think he's the quarterback of a playoff team. I think if they had a more NFL type of, like, the last couple of years they've had Fields, they've had C.J. Stroud, they've had great quarterbacks. I think that if they had one of those quarterbacks, then, yeah, they could easily get in, but I just don't see it with Kyle McCord.
All right, gentlemen, that's going to go ahead and do it for this college football block, but make sure y'all stick around because we have some MLB coming up after this.
We're through the first round of the MLB playoffs, but there's still plenty of baseball left to be played. We've got our analysts, Jack Marcus and Caitlin Miller, to break it down the rest of the way.
All right, our first matchup is the Twins versus the Astros. So my pick is the Twins. This is purely out of spite because I do not want the Astros to make it any further. But also, I think the Twins can do it if they really try hard enough.
I think that it's got to be the Astros here. I think, although I hate the Astros, as do most Americans, I feel as though they just have got the better lineup, and I would love to see a old guys Astros versus the Baltimore Orioles. And we take it down here to the ALDS. We've got the Baltimore Orioles. I think as an AL East foe but turned friend, We love to see these young guys with their powerful young core of their rookies and Adley Rutschman leading the way for them. I think they've got it to beat the Rangers.
I agree they've got a strong competition, but I went with the Rangers because they have Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, and then a great pitching lineup. They have Jordan Montgomery. They have my favorite, Aroldis Chapman, as a relief pitcher. So I just think that they have a really strong lineup, and that, yes, the Orioles are doing great, but I think that the Rangers are just more powerful.
I think Aroldis Chapman's 5.4 ERA in
Hey.
the last 2 months of the season is going to really
He
hurt
closed
them.
out a game very well,
Oh,
might I
a
add.
game. That's great.
Recently.
We
All right.
moved down to NLDS.
So
We've got the Dodgers.
Dodgers is my pick because, I mean, we all thought the Brewers were winning, first of all. So the Diamondbacks making it this far, very impressive for them, but I just can't see a scenario where they're beating the Dodgers. I just don't see it.
Very good for the D-backs. I also have the Dodgers, and I saw a stat today that said every team that's lost to the Brewers in the playoff has gone on to make the World Series. That stat is going to be null and void after this series.
Yeah.
The Dodgers are just too veteran strong, and the Corbin Carroll won't be able to lead the whole Diamondbacks to there. We move on down to the Phillies and the Braves. I think our most contested matchup, and definitely the Braves for me. I think the Phils from last year are not the Phils this year, and the Braves from
They're
last
better.
year. I fully
Trey
disagree.
Turner, 32 for 32 stolen bases. Yes, I know who he's going up against on the Braves. I don't even want to mention that name. But they're back, and they're better than ever. So I went with the Phillies, obviously, because they're going to win it all because they're the Phillies.
The Braves have all of the things to bring them back like they won a few years ago. I think that the Braves have just as good of a first baseman as they did then with Matt Olson. They've got 9 players in their lineup, all 9 players with 20-plus home runs. You've got
Phillies got 6, pretty strong, too.
Yeah, but you've got Acuna versus who?
Bryce Harper, Trey
runs.
Turner, Schwarber.
More home runs than singles.
Best stat in the MLB, in my opinion.
I think if we move down to the Braves, Phillies again, we've got the
Yep.
Yeah,
I got the Phillies because, duh.
Yeah, and I think we both think that is going to be real strong in the NL East. But I think I've got the Braves beating the Dodgers maybe, and I think that both of those teams are going to either team is going to make the World Series. I just think we can fight on who's going to be that team.
Yeah, I do think though that either will beat the Dodgers.
Absolutely.
I think if the Phillies can manage to beat the Braves, they're definitely going to go past the Dodgers. That's going to be very impressive for them.
Yeah,
and
the Dodgers love to choke.
Them against the Braves with the home field advantage is just going to be awesome.
Yeah. And then over here on the ALCS side, I've got the Orioles going. I would love to see this young buck team of the Orioles playing these veteran Astros who were here last year, won the World Series last year. I think it's going to be a wonderful matchup. We'll probably go all 5, and it's going to be really exciting to see. But I think with the home field advantage of the O's and Camden Yards, there's nothing that can beat it.
I'm going to go with the Rangers when it comes to Rangers versus the Twins. Because, well, easy matchup. But even if they are against the Astros, I do think that the Rangers have the power to win it. They have the strong lineup that I already mentioned, and I think that they're just a very powerful team that really wants to go far. And then for our World Series winners, my World Series is the Rangers versus the Phillies, and I obviously have the Phillies winning.
I think in that matchup that makes sense, but I don't see the Phillies getting nearly that far to win it. I think it's going to be O's. It's going to be the O's over the Braves. I would love to see these young bucks bring a championship back home to Camden Yards and in Baltimore that they've been longing for so long. 2019, they had 110 losses, and now they're an 101 win team this year. I think that the Orioles Braves is going to be a wonderful series, and can't wait to watch it. And I think it's going to be a great rest of the postseason. Chase?
Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Caitlin. Philadelphia, Baltimore, 2 very passionate fan bases, but we'll be watching the rest of the way. Next up, we'll close things off and finish off this episode of 1-1 Sports. Thank you for watching this edition of 1-1 Sports.
Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube so you don't miss our next episode.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram for any and all updates.
And until next time,
Whose side are you on? All right. Oh, sidearm.
Oh.
It's Phillip Rivers. Oh.